Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to talk about a tool from the BIM project suite called Room Data Sheets. Before we begin, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the webinar. If you're attending live, I will do my best to answer those in line during the presentation, and if I miss anything, I will be sure to make time at the end to answer any and all remaining questions. And this is also being recorded and will be on YouTube shortly after this is completed. And if you have questions there, feel free to leave a comment and we will be sure to get back to you on that. All right, let's just get going. Now, a very, very time-consuming aspect of Revit is view creation and sheet setup. And creating, especially when it comes to doing enlarged plans and details and elevations and whatnot for rooms and individual rooms, like say you want to do a room booklet or pamphlet for a clinic or a hospital or an educational facility, right? Oftentimes we create those little packages and hand them off to the committees or the ownership committees so that they can see exactly what's going on and what's going to be contained. Putting that together manually takes a ton of time and a lot of effort, and a lot of it is very much repetitive and the same thing over and over and over again. Today, we're going to talk about room data sheets and how we can use this tool to put together these booklets and get things set up and not spend so much time manually hand-picking rooms and setting them up and creating the call-outs and interior elevations and all that fun stuff. We can just spend our time doing the small minor edits and making sure the detail is correct and the data within the rooms are correct. So today, we're going to show you about the tool, Room Data Sheets, how to get your hand where it is, cover the UI, get you familiar with everything. Then we're going to run through a couple iterations. We're going to show you the setup, how it works on a single room. Then we'll do it on a couple more at the same time so you guys can see how it works with multiple entities selected. And then show you how to get your hands on it and where you can find some additional resources. All right, so just jump right into it. Okay, now just to quickly recap this, the workflow at hand. If you don't have a utility at play here and you're doing this manually, you find the room that you want to work on. Say it's this little office here, and you find your call out, you draw your pick, make sure it's the right type of call out, floor plan versus detail, because that doesn't update automatically. You draw your piece, go to that view, make sure the proper view templates are associated. Oops, missed the bubble. Make sure the appropriate view templates are associated, and then you're on your way. Right, and I've got my enlarged, or I've got my room data sheets enlarged one. Puts it together, and then I can start dropping my interior elevations in, and I can start building out specific schedules and filter down the schedules to only show this room, and do a lot of that. And then I can get my title block in place and start dragging the views onto the title block. I got to manually rename everything based off the room that I'm using. So this is I know I've created one view, right? It takes 5 seconds. But to do the elevation and the ceiling, or the floor plan and the ceiling plan and the 4+ elevations, maybe a 3D view that's focused in on just this area, getting a couple of schedules put in place. Maybe you need a key plan so you know where in the building you are. And there's a whole assortment of views to get this going that just view creating could take you 30 minutes without, you're not renaming anything. You got to rename it, you got to build it out on a sheet, and that's just, It takes time. And I'm not going to bore you with stuff that you guys already know how to do. So we're just going to jump right into room data sheets. So on your CTC productivity tab, we have room data sheets, right smack dab in the middle of the dark green tools. And by opening this, oh, I moved it over there for whatever reason. This is the UI, and I'm actually going to even go back even further here and start empty. Okay, so this is what it'll look like when you launch it up for the very first time. If it's never been used before, you get nothing. And we have, I'm going to explain the layout here real quick and then kind of how we set it up. So the top part here, this is where we define which rooms or spaces you want to work with. So it's not just limited to rooms. You can work with spaces in an MEP model if you'd like. And you hit the pick rooms button, and you're now prompted to pick on a room that you want to work with. And that can be from any level, even if you got to have it open first. If you don't already have it open, you got to back out, open your view, and get going with it. So I'm just going to start by grabbing this room here and hit finish. It'll list it up here for me. So it's going to tell me the room name and the room number. I'm not a fan of this room number, but I'm going to leave it alone for the moment because I'm going to show you something pretty slick here at the end of this one. The next step is to start to define what I want to work with. And that's what this bottom half is here. I set up my sheet and how I want the sheet to be named and numbered. And then I set up all of the views that I want to create based off this room down here in this lower section. So just to get it out of the way, for the sheet number and name, I'm okay with the sheet name having the number of the room and the room name. I'm good with that. And down here for the prefix, I like putting RDS at the beginning instead of at the end. That's just the prefix I choose to use in this case. And then I'm just going to do basic incremental numbering. I'm going to start at 001 and just work my way up the list. You can also match the room number. So if you know you're going to start at 100, type in 100, and they should kind of, as long as they're listed in order by room number, they will also then build out by that, and that they'll kind of line up automatically in that case. But I'm going to do the other way here, and I'm going to do increment every one sheet. And now I'm going to start putting together what I want. So you start by hitting add row, and then you pick the type of view you want to create: floor plan, ceiling plan, 3D, elevation, schedules, legends, key plan. And then we've got some sheet management properties down here for inserting a page break or a row break. And again, these really all depend on how many views you want to force on a sheet, and or maybe having that extra sheet is too much, and or that extra view on the sheet is too much, and you want to force another page to get generated. You can do that here, or just force it all to be on a second row if that's the case. So I'm going to start by just doing my floor plan, and then each time you add a row, you're going to get a line like this. You expand it, and you get some basic properties that you need to fill out to help you put this together. And specifically, the view name that you want to use, the view template that needs to go along with it. And if your view template doesn't control all of the settings like the scale and the far clips and cut planes and stuff, you can specify some of that stuff down here. Mine takes care of the scale, so I am just going to leave that alone. And we got enlarged RDS. This is the template I want to use. The view name will be number, name, dash floor plan. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. You can change it if you want. Browser organization, my templates dictate browser organization, so I can just leave it at default. If your view templates do not, you can define that here. But since my view templates kind of manage all that stuff, I don't have to worry about it. And then viewport type. With all of these, I'm going to do no title, but it will read what you have in your project, and you can pick and choose what you need for the appropriate view type. So here I'm good. Now, each time you add a view, you get the opportunity to start specifying its positioning and the layout on the sheet. So you pick the title block you want to use for this exercise. We have spacing and margin offsets here that we can work with here, and I'll show you that once we get some more stuff going on. And then you can just hit this refresh button. So every time I hit this, I'm going to get an update on what I've got placed here. So right now, it's going to default everything into the middle of the page, which is fine. And I think I've got mine coming in. This should be at a 1/4 inch here, if I remember correctly, but because I don't remember, I'm just going to go ahead and open it up here real quick. Now, and see what's nice about data sheets is I can still work in Revit even though I've got the window open. Yep, 1/4 inch. Okay, so we're good there. I don't have to close room data sheets and start over just because I want to check on a different view or a different setting or property or something like that. So now I can add my ceiling plan, and same thing. Add that row, add a reflected ceiling plan, and pick the template and the naming settings that you want to use here. Okay. In this case, this is the generic reflected ceiling plan. I don't have a lot set up for this one, so I am going to specify the appropriate scale, in this case of 1/4 inch, and move on. One other thing I want to point out here is for plan-based views, we have this parent view setting here. This allows you to turn these room plans into dependent views of whichever this may be, whatever you specify in the parent view. So if you wanted to use this to have kind of your overall master floor plan that has the appropriate template established already, and then build out a bunch of dependent views within that of each individual room, you could do that and just make sure you specify what the parent view needs to be, and they will all get bundled up underneath. I picked this our first RCP, so they'll all get bundled up underneath first RCP at that point. I don't want to do that. I want my own explicit views by themselves in this example, so I'm going to leave that alone. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my interior elevations here. So I'm going to grab that, expand it, pick the template that I want to use, which will take care of the scale. I have direction options in here for how many interior elevations do I want. I can get boundaries meeting the length requirement, meaning there's enough space to warrant an interior elevation being placed on that surface. All true directions, so if you've oriented to true north, it'll work. All other oriented directions, basically if everything's perpendicular, you'll want to do that, but it's rotated off at an angle. And then, physical, which one do you want? And as you start going down here, if you pick this one, you're going to get a single elevation. You're not going to get 4 of them. But where it says all, you will get all 4. So I'm going to leave it at the default because my building is just nice and square. I don't have a whole lot of uniqueness to this particular file. So I'm able to leave it alone as it is. So that's going to generate the 4 elevation views for me. And then let's do this. Let's get a 3D view here and pick my presentation view template at, let's do a 3/8 scale in this case. And I'm going to add a schedule. And then I'm going to refresh my preview. I haven't been doing that as I go. And You can do it after every row that you add, or you can do it all in one shot at the very end. That's kind of up to you. And the reason why I haven't been doing it, because I want to show you how long it'll take. If you're doing a bunch of these and you're not quite sure of the positioning and the layout that you want to use, you may want to refresh after every row that you've added, just so that you can take the time to start adjusting the margins and getting a handle of what it's going to look like. And then maybe at some point you'll need to insert a page break here or there. And in my case now, you can see I have a discrepancy in my scales between the floor plan here and the ceiling plan here. So something about my floor plan isn't, or my ceiling plan isn't jiving as I would expect it to. So now that's where I'm going to go pop over and update my view template in this case. Because that's the easiest way to do it. And again, I can just stick over here and do the thing. Yep. So this particular view template that I picked did have it included. I didn't think it did. So since it does, I'm just going to switch that over to a 1/4 inch. This scale here now doesn't matter. And I can hit refresh, and eventually it'll update accordingly. There we go. So we do have this refresh button up here at the top, which comes into play quite often, potentially, if you're making edits to the Revit model in the background. If you're changing view properties or names of things and you want various elements in here to update before you create anything, this refresh button will come in handy. So, and then for whatever reason, it's not updating for me, but that's okay. I'm going to keep going. It's going to work. But what I want to point out here is that maybe I want to combine a few things or break some things up or adjust some positioning here. So I want to show you how what some of these values here mean. So I'm working with 11 by 17 title block. This particular title block has a vertical border on the right side that is, give or take 2.5 inches wide. Right now, I've only got a margin of 1 inch. So it's possible that this view and my border over here are going to overlap each other. So what I do recommend doing is starting to input the margins values in here based off the border that you're using. If you're trying to put everything on an 8.5 by 11 and the border's down here at the bottom, maybe you need to bump up your margin down here at the bottom. Right? Maybe you need it at 1.5 or maybe 2.5. It all really kind of just depends on what title block you're trying to work with here. So I'm going to set my left margin to 3 to make sure that I don't have an issue with my border. I can also begin adjusting the spacing in between the views here. Maybe, so 0.5 or 1/2 inch is what the spacing between these two elevations, well, any of them really is going to be. Maybe I know I've got more room I can work with here. So maybe I want to space it out a little bit more. I can put it at 2 inches. Now, when I refresh, I'm going to start to get some updates to this. So you can see making that 3 inches actually widened this out a bit as a, kind of that preview. Here's an idea of what that might be doing. Changing the spacing between the views to 2 inches really widened these two out quite a bit, but it might actually make things look a little bit neater. So it's very possible that you may need to do that. Now, my schedule here, I didn't think it was that long, but maybe it is. Maybe there's a long description in there somewhere. Guess we're going to find out the hard way. But enough talk. I'm going to go ahead and run this. So at this point, I'm going to hit create. And what's going to happen now is Revit and the data sheets tool going to start generating a plan view, a ceiling plan, 4 elevations, a 3D view, and a schedule. There you have it. And based on the naming conventions that I've established here and the view templates in place and and my sheet names and numbers here, those views are going to be in my browser in the appropriate places. And then if I go find my RDS sheets, I've got the 5 RDS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. Let's open up the first one. I'm just gonna close this. Here it is. The second one, that's why. So I didn't do a very good job of making sure my view template was doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I've got grids in place. That's why this view was so much bigger. Makes sense. But you know your view templates better than I, which is a good thing. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly update that real quick though, because the next one I want to do, we need to make sure that that was there, that's not there. So I'm going to do that right now. And okay, now I won't forget. So you can see it did everything we told it to. We've got the nice spacing there. My elevations have the grids too. So that's okay. Oh, that's why. I'll use a different template. I thought I used this one, but I guess I did not. So we'll use that one next time. Here's my 3D view. That might be a little big. We'll adjust it on the next one, and the schedule. So the descriptions were a little lengthy in this one, so that's what got me this time, and that's okay. I can always adjust it, and it's pulling based off what was in the model. And this is the schedule that I chose, and it's effectively what's happening when it comes to the schedules. If I just scroll back up here, it's duplicating what I had picked. So I had picked this room data schedule here. It duplicated it and gave it the room number, the room name, dash schedule. Okay, if I edit this, you can see that's exactly what I ended up with here. And in the properties, it's adding the fields that I told it to, plus name and number. And this is just a generic multi-category schedule. And it's adding a filter automatically to basically to filter out anything that's not part of this particular room. So if it doesn't see it in there, it's not going to show up in your schedule. And there's a couple of questions that I think I'm going to answer real quick before I build out the next example. Can this be tailored to only create views from enlarged electrical rooms? To only create views for enlarged electrical rooms. So perhaps a filter where only if the room name contains elec. No, it can't. So you'll have to physically specify the rooms that you want to process. So if it isn't a viable room for your room book, then you wouldn't select it to run it. And you may not always know that right out of the gate, but if you did, then it makes it a lot easier for you to select and process certain rooms. There is no automation of determining which rooms you want to process. Will the schedule created always be from the room category, or can you choose the category type of schedule to create? Well, so in my case, this particular schedule is a multi-category schedule. It added the room fields here to the beginning of it, so it would show that in the schedule itself. But I built this schedule myself, so I got to choose which one to use. So I can run it again with a different schedule. So it doesn't have to be a multi-category schedule or a room schedule. It can be a furniture schedule or a door schedule or a lighting fixture schedule or mechanical equipment schedule. It's really kind of up to you which schedule you pick. Now, You can pick multiple schedules here as well. You can add the schedule row here as many times as you want and pick 3 different schedules to be put into this. You just need to come up with a way to name these accordingly. So maybe instead of just schedule, I call it furniture. And in this one, I'll call it multi-cat. And this one down here, I'm going to switch to my door schedule. Okay. So you can do that as much as you'd like. It doesn't have to be just one room schedule. It's a room data schedule. Doesn't necessarily tie to a room in this case. So now I'm going to actually pick a different room here in a minute, but I'm going to change my view template here because I grabbed the wrong one. I want to use my RDS template, and I believe, yep, I used that one there, so that's good. Okay. So let's go back. I'm going to grab a different floor plan here. I'm going to open, or first close a few of these, get this guy open. Okay, now, oh, and you can see there's the elevation markers added for me. Exactly what I would like to see there. So that's perfect for me. And actually, no, I do want to show one thing real quick before I do another big old long example of setting these up with multiple rooms. If you noticed, the room name here of this is kind of odd, AW102. I don't particularly care for the AW in my room numbers. Personal preference, not a fan. So I'm going to change these. I'm just going to pull the AW off altogether. Great. So someone already had A101. That's fun. And we'll get rid of that one, make it 102. But now I've got all these views and sheets with it as AW102. Well, if I just hit refresh on my system here, and I can open up the view and sheet names. Come on, there it goes. So if you create all your views and sheets, and then the room changes, the room name changes, or the room number changes, which is prone to happen from time to time. You're not locked into that. You don't have to delete those and recreate them, right? If it's just a simple name change, you can change it using the tool. So if I go find that particular room, which is, well, there's the 3D view, right? AW102 conference room 2-3D. It's got this checkbox for updating. Since this did change, and you can see here that the room number has updated already to be just 102. I can check that box for each one of my AW spaces and make sure it's checked, because it should be checked automatically. Just to confirm, though, and when I click OK, what'll happen is those are all going to update, and it's going to reprocess the views and the schedules that have already been created and take the AW out. So now that's gone from the schedule. And let's just pop into one of these. In the sheet, they took the AW off on the sheet names in here as well. Some of them still show it, but that's because it's just cached and hasn't updated yet. If I click on that tab, it disappears automatically. See, RDS 6 AW102. As soon as I click on it, the AW is gone. So it updates the second you initialize it. However, oh, there it goes. Now it did. Oh, this one doesn't want to update, so that's okay. Probably because I changed something about the schedule. Anyway, Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my floor plan. I'm going to grab a couple extras here this time. And while those are processing, I'm going to show you something else. So I'm going to grab, let's do this. Let's do these two. And one of these little guys. We'll hit finish. Okay, so I've got Office 109. Training room is another one of those AW things. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm going to get rid of those. Oh, and it's updating my previews here for me. That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to let it cook on that. Now, it's trying to populate everything based off what I've set, the views that I've picked. And it's possible now that I might have some overlap in between the room type, or the rooms selected versus the views requested. I've added a few more schedules this time around, so it's going to take a little bit more time to put them together. And but it should be done here fairly quickly. And while that's going, let's see. I'm going to look at this next question. Can you also show an example of something like this for 5 different rooms? Oh yeah, okay, so 3 rooms. I hope 3 is close enough. No, you don't have to do these one at a time. It would save some time to do it one at a time, but you do not have to. I honestly have done this on the entire floor plan in this particular file, and it took a little bit, but it still saved me probably a few hours worth of view creation and sheet setup and placement and all that good stuff. So, all right, I've got them in here. I'm gonna pop back over here now that it's done processing, and this one, was it? Nope, it was this one, right? Yeah. Get rid of that AW. That I'm not a fan. All right, cool. We'll hit a refresh. It updates the numbers here already, and we'll keep going. There we go. All right. And I'm just going to confirm that all my settings are what I want, just to make sure before I go ahead and click go. Again, if you weren't using view templates that specified particular scale or browser organization, make sure you set those up accordingly. I do want to point out, I didn't mention this in the initial setup, we have this offset. This offset controls how much more floor plan or elevation you see outside of the initial extent of the room itself. So right now I've got it set to 3 feet, I believe is what that's 3 feet. So from where the edge of the room, where the room ends and the view itself ends, is about 3 feet. If that's too much extra space, shrink it. Or maybe it's not enough in some cases, so add a little bit more to it. But that's what offset here is doing, is, you know, showing you more or less space depending on which direction you go with the number. Cut plane offset is, you know, cut plane. I believe that's how far back, the depth basically. Plan views, not that big a deal. Again, if you've got templates at play here, 9 times out of 10, you're okay. You won't have to worry about it. But if you don't have view templates at play, you have the ability to do some tinkering with some cut planes here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to shrink this down on the to 2 here. For my for my elevations, I'm going to change this here as well because I don't need that much in my interior elevations extra. And 3D view, I'm going to change the scale a bit, I believe. I don't think, there we go. I don't 3/8 might be too big. And will be too big now that I've got some training rooms in here. So I'm just going to pull it back. There's only a couple here, guys. All right, here we go. Cool. And offsets are good. And with the 3D view, now we're dealing with offsets from the the extent of the 3D space. And you can pick the viewer, the camera angle. So where do you want to look from? Northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. I like northeast. That's fine. I like the way that looked before. And I think I'm good. So I'm just going to hit refresh over here. All right. This is what I was thinking I'd see. So now, based on the view and the sheet, I'm starting to get some overlapping here and some bleeding in and out. And, my schedules are getting a little long and wanting to be on their own sheet, and that's okay. But now I've got a schedule and views from different rooms on the same sheet. So this is where you can start to force page breaks. So here at the tail end of this, I can add a page break. And what that will do is force the next, nothing else can be on page 1. With schedule 1.7. Nothing it's just going to be okay. And which is totally fine with me. Now, because my schedules it's seeing that I've got lengthy descriptions in my schedules. It keeps giving me this extra long length, which is kind of messing up how my view placement's going to work here. And this one's not happy because it sees that a description is super long and maybe the type name is super long for some of these. And I know these chairs actually have very, very, very long names for whatever reason. But you'll get to see stuff like that. And if you know that, it's not going to be a big deal. And I wouldn't worry too much about it. View spacing, if I set this back to 0.5, and then I'm going to add some page break / row breaks here. So on this page, I've got my 2 plans, and then I've got elevations starting to pop into this. So what I'm going to do in between the ceiling plan and the elevation here, I'm going to add a row break. I want to show you how this might look here. So grab the row break, and I'm going to move it up to here. And what this should do is force the elevations to start, take the one away from here, bump it down here, and start to put things in between each other. So I'm actually going to set that back to 1 inch. And if I hit refresh, there we go. So now I've got floor plan, ceiling plan, and it forced the elevation to the next row. Okay. And then here's the page break, force that to happen over here. And so on, and so on, and so on, right? Which is awesome. Now I can also change this to be a page break instead. I don't have to delete it and add a page break. They're effectively the same thing. So now what I can do is just change it to page break, hit refresh, and it forces it to do a thing. I can take and add another page break to get my 3D view off of my elevations page if I'd like, which is what I'm going to do. Add another page break. We'll move that up there. Hit refresh. Now I've got plans, elevations, 3Ds, and then my schedules, right? And because the schedules are appearing to be very lengthy due to the amount of data in there, it's pushing them onto their own pages. Had the data been smaller, I'd be able to sneak a few of these schedules onto the same sheet. Now, personally, I would like 2 elevations, 2 elevations. So I'm gonna I can't really add a row break here, but I can try to mess with the spacing between the views to see if I can get There we go. So make it 1.5, and it'll do it that way. Another option is to utilize a tool like View Aligner or Sheet Assistant from the BIM project suite to help tweak some positioning even further after the fact. So there we go. I'm good with it. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And while these are being created, I am going to switch over to our website and just kind of show you guys a little bit where to grab a couple things, because that's all I've got for you today. If you do not have a copy of the BIM project suite and you would like to get a trial, you may go to our website at ctcsoftware.com, go to our products page here for BIM project suite, and get yourself a free 14-day trial. In that trial that you set up, you will also see that you have actually downloaded all of the other CTC products that you can also initiate a trial with at that time if you'd like. If you don't, you can save it for another day. So you can access it here. You can also get some more information about room data sheets and other tools within the BIM project suite if you'd like, all here. I also recommend checking out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CTC software. We've got all sorts of videos up here, including additional videos on room data sheets and how to utilize some of our other products. So I strongly suggest going there if you need more information about the product or other products. And once you've had your trial, you get some more information about the tools there as well. And we're done. So now if I come back over to my browser here we go. I have all of these sheets now built out. Some of them have a number 1 in it, and that's because I didn't properly clear them out before I started today's presentation. I did 109 last time, so but that's why I have some weird numbering going on here. It was cached into memory, and that won't happen to you guys as you're doing this, as long as you do it properly. That's a caching problem on my part. But everything's here. Everything's set up the way I told it to set it up. And yeah, there we have it. I can also adjust my view template to turn off some of the cropping, and so that I don't see all of the other elevations everywhere. But that concludes it. So I want to say thank you all for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. I hope you guys got something out of the presentation today in room data sheets, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time.